Hey, welcome to WSAZ Now. It's about 2:20 some in the afternoon. We'll allow you all to get out of your chairs, stretch a little bit, and get ready to watch some really, really fine entertainment here. Well, it's not fine. Could we call it fine entertainment, Chelsea?
I absolutely think so.
I think so, because we have Kimberly Keagy with us. So, I think this is wonderful. Like, it doesn't get any better than this. Like right now, we're
Right.
just hanging out, just doing our thing.
You know what? I really like this whole casual conversation thing. I think it's gonna stick around for a while.
This is way better.
Yeah.
I think it's really way better. So what are we talking about today?
Okay, so today, earlier this week, I got the chance to sit down with Ohio Governor Mike Dewine as he enters into his final year in public office. So think about this. He's spent more than 5 decades as a public servant. He's held different various positions across the state of Ohio. You might remember him as the Attorney General. Then you think he's now into his second term as governor.
Yeah.
And so as we enter into 2026, really the clock is starting to tick on what he wants to accomplish, what we need to get across the finish line. And so we really had just a candid conversation on a bunch of different topics. We aired a story yesterday on our 6 o'clock news.
Oh,
Yeah, you can watch that on our website. And so that kind of gives you an insight on just some topics that we picked. One in particular, that we were talking about was the Lawrence County Developmental Disabilities.
This is where I'm still working, Kimberly.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
But we talked about the open door school. So that was, a thing that we saw last year, towards the end of last year, November, December, the open door school in Lawrence County.
Things that you believe has worked.
So let's go ahead and take a
well for
listen.
the state of Ohio.
Well, the real advantage I think that we have in the state of Ohio, I'm not responsible for. That was Governor Kasich and the state legislature, but that's something that we call Jobs Ohio. And it's really the privatization of our economic development operation. We still have an economic development team, but Jobs Ohio really takes the lead. And we fund it through liquor sales in the state of Ohio. So our liquor sale profits go into economic development. So that gives us a significant amount of money. It also gives us a very, very professional staff that will keep. I'm governor, whoever is governor, and I work very closely with them. And so we've had some great successes. I could kid you or kid West Virginia and kid the governor, who's actually a friend of mine, and say, oh no.
So he had a lot to say.
Yeah, so the reason why we wanted to kind of share that with you is Jobs Ohio is really now running as the model for what West Virginia is actually looking to do and accomplish in the legislature this year.
Right.
We've heard from that the House session will likely start with a focus on jobs in the state of West Virginia. And so they are trying to run House Bill 1, which they're trying to make it very similar to Jobs Ohio in the fact of we want to bring economic development growth to the state and we want to improve access to jobs. And so, when we think about that, and I want to go ahead and pull up my notes so we can kind of talk a little bit about the specifics. The whole idea of this is really privatizing to bolster the state's economic development. And when I was talking with Governor Dewine, he said, that's what makes us unique. And he even pointed out the elephant in the room. We know that anything that is tied to government, it doesn't happen very quickly. That's just the name of the game. And unfortunately, that's the speed of it. And so he said, I think that's what makes this program so successful is that they're not tied to the same regulations, tied to the same constraints. And so we're likely going to see that, as the West Virginia legislature starts up next week on Wednesday. It's the first day of the 60-day session.
Right.
We're going to start to hear that a lot. And so I wanted to ask him, I said, what advice do you give to West Virginia?
Yeah.
And he joked with me and he said, I'm not going to knock West Virginia for kind of trying to steal our idea, but
Is he proud? He's probably proud of it.
he is proud of it. And
I'm
he
sure.
said, I'm not the one that put in the work for it. That was Governor Kasich, but it has proven to be successful. And there's a continuity because no matter who's in office, that program is still going to be there. And he says, if West Virginia can kind of use that idea and mentality, he believes that West Virginia could also have a successful program.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to, even though he's saying that, the former governor is responsible for starting that program, as a whole, Ohio has to feel proud that their next door neighbor is saying, "Hey, we want to do what they're doing," and we previewed that in the last session as the West Virginia legislature was closing out that session. We talked about what was coming up. So, what do we expect to see? And maybe it's too early to ask you about that, but what do we expect to see? Some of the tailor-made items that West Virginia might look at specifically what Ohio has done successfully.
I think we can start to see the fact that they're going to look at how Ohio operates in that model and really start to mirror things. Now, as far as the specifics, we don't have too many of that. Right now, those draft bills aren't necessarily available to the public yet. We typically see those maybe the first few days of the session right before it. So next week, I think we'll get a better idea, to see the exact specifics of what they're looking to tailor it to. And we didn't just talk about economic development. Of course, that was a big part of our conversation, but a lot of our conversation, Tim, really revolved around investing in the state's next generation.
Yeah, you talked about kids a lot.
Yeah. He has 28 grandchildren, and so it's something that he
means something to him
very
personally.
passionate about. He's trying to invest and make sure that no matter what, no matter where somebody wants to go, what type of industry they want to do, they have the resources in the state of Ohio. And so you may remember First Lady Fran DeWine. This is something that she really spearheaded. She was talking about the Imagination Library. That's Dolly Parton's Imagination Library.
Right.
We've heard a lot about it. And so that is something that they've worked really hard to implement.
Yeah.
It's now as simple as checking a box when your child is born in a hospital if you want to sign them up for it. And so a child who is age 0 to the age of 5, they can receive a book a month. So that's one book per month for 5 years. So really do the math. That's about 60 books or so. Take a listen.
I don't think we can hear this one.
Oh, geez. Well,
that's the Dolly Parton Imagination Library.
That's what we're talking
Your time in
about.
office has come by very
Oh,
quickly.
there we go.
And as we approach that last final year, what are you looking to hope to accomplish this year?
Well, I think there's nothing more important for us to really continue to focus on reading. The science of reading, we know, is the way that kids really learn how to read, but we got away from that in many states across the country, and we've tried to pull that back here in Ohio, and we are, and we're very happy, frankly, with some of the results we're seeing. We did this about 3 years ago. It takes some time to implement, but it's basically sounding words out. It's using the best science that we have to teach kids how to read. And we're starting to see some results. This past year, we saw good results in our kindergarten kids, and we're going to continue to see that. But we have to keep pushing that. Something else that we're working on that really directly has to do with kids being able is eyesight. Every school in the state, every child who is in grade school is required, for the school to have some sort of screening process. Does that child need to have an eye exam? The sad thing is about 2/3 of kids that red flagged that they need that never actually get an eye exam. And so we've got a pilot program in 15 counties, and we're really focusing on taking that directly to children. So one of those counties, your child is, what's going to happen is the kids that are red flagged, they need an eye exam. There's going to be a van that pulls up, and all the kids are going to get that eye exam. And then if they need glasses, they need assistance, that van's going to come back in 3 or 4 weeks and fit those children with eyeglasses. And so it's all with the parents' consent, but it makes it easy, and it makes sure that it gets done. And kids being able to see, what's more important in regard to reading than the child being able to see? So we're going to really roll that out this year. So a lot of, I think, very interesting things that we've got going on. Economic development will always be very important. We've got to continue to do everything we can to bring jobs to Ohio. We're making progress in that area, so we're moving forward.
Okay, so inside baseball, got to ask you this.
Yeah.
Because people are interested, how does this work? Does the governor's office call you, or do we, as a TV station, call the governor's office and say, hey, we'd like to do kind of early January interview with you?
Sure. So this is something, that we typically, it can go either way, vice versa, right? In this case in particular, Ohio Governor DeWine's office reached out to us and said, hey, we'd like to kind of talk up to you guys. They let us pick the topics, though, and so I pull out any topic that I think of and say, hey, that was a big story for us this year, or, ooh, that's something that we really followed. And so it kind of goes both ways. Sometimes we'll reach out to the governor's office. Let's say there's a specific story that we're working on or a certain topic of stories that we've saw. We can reach out to them and set something up. But I think it's always really important for people to hear from the people that are elected to office, the people that are in charge of our state. And so I think that's really very crucial. And one topic that we didn't get to talk a little bit about, or we didn't get to air here, but it's in our story online, that we were talking about earlier today, is remember the tax levy that failed in Lawrence County. That tax levy was supposed to help fund what's known as the Open Door School. And so that school focuses on helping children with developmental disabilities have an education, have hands-on learning. The school was able to garner up some resources they announced last month to stay open for 1 year. But you have to think that's going to leave a huge hole in our communities. And so, in our story, I did ask Governor Mike Dewine, I said, hey, what can we do to help these children? Because, unfortunately, we have heard so many stories of families saying, I'm going to have to look elsewhere. I remember one parent in particular sharing with our reporters and saying, we're looking at big states. We're talking Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, states that are very far from here. And you have to think that young child has probably only ever known the state of Ohio. Maybe they're close to family, close to friends. And so they're in an educational setting that is crucial to their development as a child. And I thought it was really important to ask him about that. And he said, I don't have an answer for you today, but I can tell you that we're working on it. And so that's going to be something that we're following up with him very closely, because I feel like that is going to leave such a hole in our communities. And we know we want those kids to be taken care of. I think advocating for the next generation is really important. And the more voices that we can share and more advocacy that we can see from people, I think is really, really important in our communities.
Yeah, that's and you're right. It's the kind of thing that affects families directly, and we talk to a lot of those families about that. This is great, and if people want to see more about it, they can go to WSAZ.com and check out that whole story.
Yeah, we'll have it there for you. It's already up on our website, so make sure that you kind of tune in. And I think, Tim, really before we let people go, if there are stories about certain things in our communities, or, hey, I want to ask the governor this, send us an email. Call the station, right? Because the best stories come from the people that live in those communities. And I think,
100%.
There's so many times where somebody will shoot me an email and they'll say, hey, can you check into this, or can you look into this? And I think that's a really great way for us to find out, we can't always be everywhere 24/7, right? So,
how many times have people said, where do you guys get your stories? And we're like, from you guys. That's,
so
us guys get them from you guys. So that's how that works.
So if you've got something specific, or if maybe you're saying, oh, I wish they would have asked the governor this, send us a message. My email was on the station's email. Please send me a note, and we will get to working on finding the answers to that.
Yeah. Well, Kimberly, thanks. You'll see us again. I'll be there at 4. Kimberly will be there at 5. So if you didn't get your fill of us here.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You'll get more later. So,
well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Kimberly. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you again.